there are, hell, 3 years ago, I think was the last time I did my training class, you guys had boards from like 3 different generations of stuff. And that's where the issue was always coming. They'd call it, say, hey, I need a character panel for a, 9757. We chip what the current one used was, and then come to find out it was a board 8 years old that they don't, the wiring harnesses all changed, the technology all changed. So when it comes to a point where we start getting into that, we can always get the bin number and stuff off the front. So that kind of tells us which way we need to go. And then start falling apart on it. Between the VIN number and then some pictures of the front of the panel and a picture of the back side of the panel, because all of the newer ones have the power and the data all together in one plug. Some of these older ones had a separate power, separate data. So when it comes time to start looking at the panels, a couple pictures, some information will be, and the VIN tag will be a huge help. That way we know which ones we're looking at. Pretty much the heart of everything on this whole board is coming out back here in this controller. It could be in different locations. Some of the older boards is probably in this cabinet up front, right? Still up front. Probably we went there for a year or two. They were actually underneath the lid over top of the batteries. Now we're back here, so you've got different variations of where it's at. But as far as the controller itself, it has not changed. It's still the same. It's still the same controller. These use a little different keyboard now compared to the old ones, but as far as the guts, everything is still the same. Then you got your on. You're going to log in. There's really only about 4 things that I can think of that you're going to be looking at mainly. I'm sure you see one of there. When you turn it on, it gives a little error message. It says initialization error, wait 10 seconds and reset. And I'll tell you this in a second. When you start getting that message, there's a tiny little 2032 watch battery. $2.50 watch battery that will shut this damn thing down that quick when that battery goes out. Not that it's 3 minutes long, it won't even allow you to power up the controller to make the board work. So you're dead in the water. So I'm sure by now y'all have 2032s out here somewhere along the line. And I'll get this to Miss Pam. There's a set of instructions. Anyway, so your name, everything here is all going to start. In that. To access the back there, you have to remove this bottom corner panel. Yeah, there's a lot going on. Could be anywhere from 4 to 6, anywhere from 4 to 6 screws. They have clips where they clip in. Yeah. Like I said, on this panel here, everything comes in on one. Some of the old ones, you had a data, or had power and data coming in on the back. Sometimes they were mounted on the front that came up from the bottom. So like I said, there's a few variations going on out there. Going back to the watch battery, that tiny little watch battery sits right there. In the Older boards were the controller with its own separate little box. There's 4 self-tapping screws that you take out, gently open up, just the wire's kind of tight, and it sits right in underneath there. But it's the same setup, maybe just kind of a little different configuration when you do it. Like I said, I'll email Ms. Pam. There's a tiny little set of dip switches here that are used to program the controller. And there's a series of instructions when it starts giving that initialization error message, put a new battery in, shut the, put all the dip switches in the off position. There's a tiny little red reset button. Tiny little red. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay. Tiny little red reset button right there. You'll press that reset button, wait 10 seconds, press the reset button, wait 10 seconds. The dip switches, they're on or they're off. The ones that you flipped off, you'll flip back on. Turn the controller on in the front. It may still give you that initialization error message a couple times. What it's doing is just doing a master reset. If you had any messages already saved to the thumb wheel, which you're aware of the thumb wheel for programming, all of that stuff will wipe away. Not the end of the world, you just have to go and reprogram stuff. So there's,
Is that before or after you replace the battery?
after,
After.
yes, ma'am.
Is there an internal battery inside of it, or is it going off the 12 volt?
Actually, we just had this discussion yesterday. It just, to run that right there, there's nothing keeping that charge up. It's just running on itself. We just had this conversation. It'd be nice if they could somehow, from the solar and the battery, to keep that charged. I've been told there's not a way for them to do that. So right now, I've had that battery last anywhere from 2 years to 2 weeks. I don't know the rhyme or reason. It just kind of depends on where you buy them from, how good they are. So once you get that replaced, it will give you the same error message a couple more times as we permit it on and off, and then you'll be good to go. That's probably the first thing that you will ever see on these boards. Okay. Second point to work on is the photo cell. That's what picks up the light, tells the board to brighten up during the day so you can see it, tells it to dim at night, so it's not so bright that it blinds you. They ever bring one into you here and say, hey, this thing's so dim during the day, I can't read it. 9 times out of 100% of the time, it's the photo cell going bad. What I will have you do, the first thing we're going to do, check it. Turn it on. Enter 1, 2, 3, enter. When you get to your main menu, I'm going to have you down key the number 5 for configuration, 5, and then enter. Item number 4, and there's going to say set brightness mode. Go 4, and then enter. It's going to give you the chance to do the photo cell, which it runs off normally every day, or it's going to give you a chance to go manual, to where you're going to override that and go to manual. So if you call me and say, hey, this thing's real dim, I'm going to have you switch it from photo cell to manual. Let's see what it does when I do it. Normally, when you switch it to manual off of the photo cell, it'll automatically brighten up because you're overriding. This thing goes on a scale, is it 1 to 12 or 1 to 14? 1 to 15 as a brightness level. It automatically maintains itself at 7. So right now, when you look at it, it'll say 7, but if the photo cell's bad, it's not going to be that. That's why when I change it to manual, it'll brighten up and get you that level. So tell me what this thing does. It looks pretty good right now inside, so I'm gonna think that your photo cell's good. Everything changed a little bit in here, just because of our light, 10% outside. Trying to think about what that's doing now inside, it's picking up a lot of light. If you were outside, it should be that bright during the day anyway, so you can see it. Then dim down at night. But anyway,
Not though, how can our users?
okay,
Because it's not that bright, I mean, it was bright when you first turned the board.
Uh-huh.
It was that bright when you got it, but when it's out of the road, it wasn't this bright.
okay.
But you got, if you're facing eastbound, or, you know, you've got sunlight to the east, and it's sun faces that. Would the sun interact with the way that the brightness goes up and down?
Yes, that's what that's all about, but like I say, but if the photo cell's bad, like I say, during the day outside, it should be that bright,
Okay,
so that you can see it.
okay.
Photo cell is right here, and this is another thing, they've changed this within the last,
They changed locations.
the old style ones, the photo cell used to be on a little plate that mounted up midway here on the rails. That's how they used to be. Some of your old ones I know were like that. The new style ones, and when I say new, within the last 4 or 5 years probably, it's now down here. It's actually the same setup, same result in the end, just different ways to mount. Like this little one here just has a little cap on it that you unscrew. That thing pops out from that hole. 3 wires, it's all plug and play. I'll just run to these 3 wires here. There's black, white, red. And it's just plug and play, one to the other. And then it'll just slide back in this hole. The cap. Say that again? Mhm. That's probably the time frame that you're talking about, yes. Yeah, I think when we started switching, mounting the controller in the back of the cabinet is when we moved it down to this corner.
It's also going to vary from model to model.
I was gonna say, because I think that we do have some where the cell is on the bar in the center of the board.
Yep,
And then we also have a couple where the cell is down at the bottom,
okay.
but not in the same place as the keyboard. Maybe it's not.
It's through the bottom.
Yes,
Instead of facing forward, it's down facing.
I don't ever remember doing it in the bottom, but yeah.
I've worked on some of it.
Okay, I don't think I ever recall seeing one go through. that.
The other thing that maybe want to be aware of, if you've got it out on site and it's too dim, you can go to manual, set it at that level 15, and you're covered. Now, come nighttime, so you bypass the theoretically malfunctioning photosensor. At nighttime, it's going to look like a fireball because it's too bright.
yeah.
And being on manual, you'd have to set it down.
Because this is the manual setting on 7, here's the manual setting on 15, which is the max.
Oh, yeah. I can see when you're going 55, 60, 70, it's just. It's just burning into like a fog.
So,
At night, absolutely.
At night.
Yeah.
so to kind of get your question, what do you do in the field if you have to? We can go in to the configuration. You can do a manual override from the photocell to manual, and then you can actually physically set the brightness mode, like I said, to 15. So you got to remember during the day, that's great. But at night, if you don't go back and reset it, we'll put it back down.
Well,
We don't really.
Do a lot of night stuff, you probably.
No, we do a lot of night stuff, and it's there 24 hours.
Okay.
So, but we, as far as the user, will now open up that panel and pretty much mess with it.
Gotcha.
Unless it's where it's on the control panel, where we
Okay.
go to put our message in, and we can, I thought on the older version ones that we have, that you can manipulate on that spindle wheel, or there's some type of, mechanism that you can adjust that brightness?
No, it's all in the settings within, like now when you go to number 2 to create and edit a message, you'll just scroll down to 4 or 5 to configuration, then it'll pop up a whole new menu. And then I think option number 4 is set brightness mode, manual photo cell, and then to actually manually set it as number 5, and that's where you get into.
That's on my older version.
That's on all of them. Yep, that is one consistent thing.
Yeah,
On that.
And then if you can't adjust that way, then that means that that photo cell is bad altogether and it needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
You're saying yes and you're saying no.
Well, it does. If you see it like that, and take for instance, shine a flashlight into the photo cell, and do not see the brightness come up, that's the tell. Right.
Your indication that it's the photo cell.
Correct.
I think that makes sense.
Now, the other thing that you may want to be aware of, and the reason why, is there are certain MUTCD and industry standards with regards to legibility and visibility. Legibility is different from visibility. You can see it a quarter mile away. You may or may not be able to actually read it until you're a lot closer.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why the brightness varies during the day and especially at night. The brighter it is, the more power it draws. So from autonomy time and battery usage, we don't want to brighten it any more than we have to maintain that legibility distance.
I got it.
That's from the manufacturer's point of view. Because after all, you don't want to drag it in and charge the batteries any more than you have to.
Well, from a safety perspective too, we don't want to blind people.
Don't want it to be a motorist warning, not a distraction. I always use the analogy of points of water, put it out there. Doesn't mean that they're going to read it. It certainly doesn't mean they're going to pay any attention.
So let me ask you this, outside of the photo cell being going bad, it can obviously, I'm assuming it can be replaced.
Oh, absolutely.
And so the mechanism that does your manual,
That's in the programming software.
so that's in the programming software.
Yep.
So let's just say that goes bad, how does that get replaced?
That's that whole controller board.
So that's the motherboard.
Yep, that's the whole, either the box or everything going on in there.
That goes bad, is the whole board bad?
It's
Yeah.
we, as Wayne said, the controller, the keypad may have changed a little bit, but that's interchangeable. The LCD screen is a replaceable part. Sometimes you've probably seen the old ones where one line in the LCD screen or two lines in the screen don't seem to work. That component is replaceable.
Okay,
The photocell is actually the easiest thing. It's a 10-minute swap out.
okay.
Sounds good.
So, I would have bought an older board.
Right. Do you have any of them here that we can look at when we're done here?
It's the only board that we brought in because it's for feeding, so.
Well, here's what I'll do. I'll be back this way probably another month, 6 weeks. I'll call Miss Pam and I'll coordinate coming. I get down this way a lot.
Okay, because I have currently 5 right now. That's the older ones, the older ones.
That can use some.
With the old keyboard box. And they're all, you cannot see them
Yep.
until a car is.
Photocell.
That sounds like photocell right
Yeah,
there.
that's the easy fix. Yeah.
Reload more than one more week dinner than this world.
I can tell you, parts become obsolete. And it's outside of our control. You've got a microprocessor here, which is everybody who's heard anything about the news or has tried to buy a new car, Microprocessors are hard to come by these days. That's why Ford's having to shut down production. They don't have the chips to run. Well, in our industry, we're under the same kind of constraints. When they obsolete one of these parts, you have to do a redesign. Other thing, in older boards, LEDs have a expected average lifetime of 100,000 hours. That's like the same as an incandescent bulb where it's average life 400 hours. You could have one that lasts 10 years and one that after you turn it on the second time glows. So when you get a refurbished board, they're replacing the LEDs, older LEDs, newer LEDs, and they're made likely to be a brightness difference, even with under the same power input. Advanced technology, LEDs have become more efficient at a brighter level. Then, technician can only replace LEDs that are out when he's testing. Once it gets back to you, and a week down the road, 3 more may have gone out. That's probably what you're seeing. Frustrating for you, not much we can do from our end other than fix, well, you can't fix what you don't see as broken.
Yeah.
I understand the dilemma, and, you know, we're faced with the same thing.
Yeah.
So there are some options. You mentioned it, we can swap out, use the same case, use the same control and electronics, swap out all the panels. You may have to swap out the wiring harness to accommodate the new panels. It's an expensive proposition.
Right. Yeah, when we get to that point where we're refurbishing from a 2009 setup to what's current today, we generally pick those up, take them back to Tupelo ourselves and redo them. Because everything inside is going away, all the wiring, the whole 9 yards is gonna go. And we do it all the time. I mean, we do damn near every DOT board that you see in the state of Florida. We've done that same thing, because they may have an old PSC board or an old Wonka board, that same situation. Can't get panels, can't get controllers, can't get this, can't get that. We pick them up, we take them back. On the case of this, it would just be a swap out of all the internal here, but on another brand board, we actually take the whole display off and replace it with a whole new updated display.
Or about 2/3 cost of the
A brand new one.
2/3.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
We're reusing chassis and the frame, the solar, the hydraulics, and we're replacing electronics, side case and all. So, yeah, and that's where the money is. It's in there.
So.
So I've never seen a converter. When we do, what we call a refurbish, I've never seen it. I mean, we can maybe price out.
You're talking about refurbishing a K&K sound, right?
Yeah.
All new in. Yeah, they will sell you that. Need to talk with Wayne. And because if you go straight to the service department, they're charging you one-off line item pricing. For a package deal, we could work with you.
Yeah, I would highly recommend if it's to a point like that, let us come by and pick it up and take it back to Tupelo and do it ourselves. I would highly recommend. Right. Yeah, you're chasing rabbits. Right. Yeah, no, and, the old technology, when each one of those LEDs was individually soldered through that board. They shake loose, the solder comes loose, and you're just chasing rabbits, trying to do it.
But here's the beauty of the refurbished. program that we offer, is it comes out of maintenance budget as opposed to new equipment budget.
Right.
New equipment, as you probably well know, is a battle in itself to get funded, to get approval, etc. Then there's a bid process.
Yeah.
You know, you could be a year down the road before you get the equipment you need. You take the refurbished, that's maintenance.
Yeah, right.
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 And we'll take whatever you got in your boneyard and salvage it. It'll all be all new electronics, all new sign case. Or,
And it'll all be up to date until the next time it's not up to date, until it changes again. I mean, sadly, that's how it is. Yeah, I remember that the last time they had some old ones, they, had to use some little wiring harnesses and I remember that coming up. I remember that coming up the last time. So, yeah, it may be to the point where might have to consider doing some of that. And it's getting there. You know, another thing that can be done on, I know you don't want to do it every day, but you know, suppose on some of those old boards, you got a couple of panels right out in the middle of the board that are out, right where your message is always going to be. But yet, you know, the four corners are probably your least used out of one. You know, you can swap positions on those boards. On the front of every board, there's a little bank of dip switches. And they are all relative to the position, okay? So if I were to put the alphabet up, you know, A through, I think it ends up Y. A through Y. I get a little key for it that I'll send, that'll tell you which of these little dip switches need to be on and off. You can interchange panels. Say you need that panel, you know, you need the A for the A and the T and it's out. But yet you're not using that space and that space. And you want to swap out just to get you by, just to get you out there for now. You can remove those panels by changing those dip switches, which are location specific. You can make, like, if we were to do the alphabet, that might be the A, let's just say that's J. You can swap those panels out, but if you don't change the settings, now A's going to be there, J's going to be up there. You switch the settings to the proper location, you're going to switch. It'll be where it's supposed to be. So that can be done. It's just a quick field fix. You know, like I say, it's not going to fix everything, but it may get you through the message for this week.
and it may get you through because you can leave the panels out, send them to be repaired.
Right.
When you get them back, you just put them where you need them. And you've still got a functional sign during that repair period, unless you want to have spare parts.
So let's see, we've done watch battery, we've done photo cell, we've done dip switches on panels. Next item, solar charge controller. I think some of the old boards, it might be a little bit different. We've been using this model for
It's the same.
Is it the same? Okay. I've seen some that were a little bit different,
Yeah,
but,
it's slow the keyboard.
okay, that's right. So it's mounted on that front face. Well, on that's where your solar's coming in to charge your battery, going from your battery to the display. If you get the looking across it, like right now, these batteries are at 13 volts, so you're plenty good. Florida sun, I've seen these things, if you've got this just sitting outside not in use, hell, I've seen it get probably as high as 14. So, I mean, they're cooking pretty good. At 11.7, this board will go into automatic shut off in a win. Is where it's gonna go. Will not come back on until about 12.2. That's gonna be the other thing. If you get a lot of them that are running during the day, and then about 2 hours into dusk, they start cutting off. Solar charge controllers probably starting to go bad.
Questions from topic. So we just moved into our new building and they're building us a huge over. And, you know, these have the sun, but then the charge, that's for them to charge, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
But also sitting out in the sun, it, the components are going bad, it's wear and tear.
Double-edged sword.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
It's a double-edged sword, so we're thinking about storing these underneath an overhang, but it's just like a pole barn, it's like open on both ends, 30 feet tall, so sun is still coming in, some sun is still coming in, but it's still protecting you from the weather.
Worst case scenario, they've all got a plug and a charger on them. You can always plug them in.
Is that even on the older ones too?
Yes, ma'am.
And these trickle chargers are regulated. So you can plug them in, they will not overcharge your batteries. As a matter of fact, they'll go into idle mode. If you're gonna put a pole barn, then I'd have a couple of electrical outlets, because it's a typical extension cord, 3-prong. Put them on forgive me if I chuck with this, maintenance schedule and rotate it, that plug every so often. And the only reason why I chuckle is that I talked to a lot of maintenance departments who routine maintenance on equipment, you guys, they bring it to you, you're glad to do it. But if they don't bring it to you, and you're not responsible for that routine maintenance that nobody took care of. They are sealed batteries.
The older ones probably actually have water in them still, so I mean, that's always gonna be, yeah, so the new ones.
They're in belly box.
Yeah, yeah, so
So
the new ones are sealed.
The new ones are sealed, the older ones, obviously, water, and they will get thirsty because they are current solar charging throughout the year, throughout the days, et cetera. I've heard customers on a 4-battery bank go through 4 to 6 gallons of distilled water, topping them all off.
Well, these guys here are pretty good when they're due for their PM, their PMC, they do a pretty good job, so.
But getting back to our solar charge controller, this thing is what allows the sun to go to the batteries and from the batteries to the display itself. Like we talked, if you, in the old ones, I like the placement on them now when they're hid back behind there. I didn't care for the placement on some of your old ones that was up underneath that display, because if somebody didn't do the training class to understand that the little red toggle switch is what turned them on and off, you send somebody out there and say, hey, man, do me a favor, go shut that message board off for me real quick. So bam, if she hadn't taken a class, she comes out there and keeps looking around, and for whatever reason, everybody is drawn to that right-hand yellow button. Don't ask me why, but that's the one that they draw to. And as you see right there, that shut it off. But what that did, that shut off the power from the batteries to the display. So, well, good, you accomplished what you were trying to do until you come back out on Monday morning to go turn the damn board on in the board's dead. You're calling me saying, wait, what's going on? It's not working. It's showing 13 volts, but we're not coming up and down. First thing I'm gonna ask you to do, you guys notice it all, you got a little picture of a solar panel, a little picture of a battery, a picture of a light, little arrows go through. When it's filtering through, those little arrows will have a little black tick mark ticking itself around, showing you that it's going through the process. If you ever get out there and the right-hand one is just an empty arrow and it doesn't have the little black tick marks going through, I live in Hilton Head, South Carolina. I drove all the way to Pensacola, Florida, the 2-story, 8 hours and 40 minutes one way. Sold some message boards to a new customer. He was mad. We delivered them on Thursday. That Monday already, they weren't working. Get your ass down. I mean, I took it up one side on a Sunday afternoon. Walked him through this whole thing. Are you sure? Oh, it's there. I'm sitting there looking at it. Left that following morning. Got there Monday morning. I opened up. He met me out there. He was cutting into me already. I barely put on the grass. He was cutting into me. Popped open. They were older ones we were doing. I opened it up. Whoever he had sent out on, last time they'd work on Friday night, that's what they hit. pushed the button, they came back on, went to the other three, did the same thing, fixed all three of them for about 15 minutes. So when we took them from the box and put them here, I liked putting them back here to keep people from the temptation of shutting them off. But now, and when we changed everything up again, and now they're back there to get access, because, you know, it's like everything else, it's electronic, and I can assure you, it's gonna go bad at some point. Just, once again, I've got some that have been around for years, and some that,
I mean, I guess I'm on the fence because where it's the older ones where it's located now, you could look at it and almost troubleshoot
yes.
without taking the panel even off.
Well, that's what it came down to. This was just one, when we took the controller from the box and started putting it back here, this was the first generation of it, and I think that's exactly what happened. We always go and do these training classes, talk, and people's like, you know, it's kind of nice to be able to see, you know, where the battery's at. So they are mounted back into a spot that you can see it. So, but, yeah, that little button right there, outside of that $2 water battery. It'll mess your world up in a second.
How long?
Few places, I mean, it's then we've got 4 screws, there's plug and play, just one, yeah, 20 minutes probably to swap it out. But on the case of yours, they're running all day and not at night. If allowed the sun, they run it during the day, but it's not getting sun, it's not charging the batteries to keep it up during the night. So that's something we need to look at.
How long do those flooded batteries last?
5 years, probably. 5 years.
So we can replace them?
Are we talking
You talking the big batteries?
Big batteries?
Yeah.
They're like, it's not unlike car battery. Every manufacturers say 4 to 5 years is about the life of a car battery. Same is true with these.
And just like these little watch batteries, maybe not down here so much,
What-
but some of my other areas, first cold snap we have, when everything kind of weakens down a little bit, I'll get a dozen calls on that first cold morning every year. And it's just cold enough, you know.
So what type of flooded battery are you using?
I don't know. Have to open up the.
Because for a start, stop, there's a different type of flooded battery.
Yes.
That is
We're
great.
using a marine type battery.
No, it's not a marine. It's actually for automotive.
It's made for deep charge and deep cycle.
Deep cycle, that's what
Deep cycle. Automotive has to have the heavy cranking amps.
Mhm.
We're not interested in cranking amps. We're interested in
Right.
being able to charge and discharge at a regular level. So we could get you that information. I just don't have that. Right.
I was just wondering if we could use those other batteries, because actually it's for higher temps. The heat,
There's, we also offer glass mat, which a lot of
do glass
southern
mat.
states claim have a better performance than the higher temps.
Yeah, but the charging, can't use a trickle charge on a glass mat.
It takes a different kind of charger.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. Not many people know that, but. correct.
No?
Yeah,
Uh.
no, you'd be surprised. I mean, don't.
Wow.
Act as a disconnect. I believe one of those buttons will do that. I couldn't tell you which one because it was a long time ago when I read up on this thing. So, we could experiment with it, or I could call my tech and get that answer out. I'll do that. Just to act as a on-off switch or disconnect, which is essentially what that right-hand button is doing. It's acting as an on-off switch between solar battery and the load, which is the site itself. Solar panels are, for the most part, maintenance-free, although you will want to wash them off periodically. No, you don't typically worry about snow in this part of the world, but especially around construction zones, when the dust starts,
To the Martian, what part of
the
it?
solar panel.
Oh, so, yeah.
Right. Wayne and I've probably got a million different stories with regards to, well, I'm having to charge my batteries every month. Or, you know, they say, the misconception, everybody thinks, put a solar panel on it, by Georgia, it's good forever, right? Not when you place it under a pole barn or under a bridge abutment
Or under a tree
or under a tree.
for a month.
Right, exactly. So you're aware, you've got the experience, you know what I'm talking about. So,
These machines were tested, they should run 14 days on pure battery alone. 24 hours a day. So you're safe down here because the sun's never not gonna shine in Florida for that. Northeast states, yeah, they get held down here. I've never had that be an issue. I've actually, the only issue I've ever had battery wise down here was actually getting too hot. I mean, like, I've had it, get 14 and some change on a 12-volt battery. That's cooking. That's cooking pretty good.
anyway, so.
Yeah.
One of my favorites, customer called me in February. So why am I having to charge these batteries every couple of weeks? You're in Maine? Yeah, well, nice guy. Said, that ain't snow. Nah, we've been pretty much covered up the last 6 weeks. How about those solar panels? The conversation turned real quick. He became a little apologetic. He said, oh, yeah, I guess. I said, and ultimately, we were chuckling at it at that point, but he said, what can I do? I said, other than towing them to Florida, just keep your solar panels clean. That's all you get. And I didn't hear from him again, so. And low voltage batteries will, as you probably experienced, will freeze quicker at a higher freezing temperature than charged batteries. So you have to understand, it's a battery operated machine. The solar is simply there to assist in giving you longevity between charge events. And like you said, this part of the world, you may never have to hook it up to a charger unless you parked it in a pole barn for 6 months.
Or when you park it under the pole barn, just make sure that it's shut off. You'd be surprised how many times I've come in to do a class and the message boards are in a shop or whatever, and they're just sitting there running.
Blinking messages.
Yeah, just blinking. Yeah, so.
My staff brings the boards in and they just, you're coming in at 5 a.m. and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I forgot to shut the boards off.
Right. So, just little things like that.
It happens.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, you know,
You know, it's
Just
for the sun, and our boards, not this particular board, but our board. Sometimes you really can't even see what they're on. Right here.
let me look in my truck. I don't think I did. I might. Let me check and see my truck before I go if I have a photo cell, and I'll leave one here to give to one of these guys to try on one of your boards and see if that fixes. How about it?
On the older board, and that's take this, the photos out at all. When we brought them in, we mentioned that the boards are super dim, and we were having a problem. And, you know, one of the problems is so when the boards come back, you know, we park them and we don't go back to them and until it's time to like use them, right? So, and of course, you have not, so we'll pick one. Use it. Not necessarily the one we brought back. So, have you guys tested out to see if it's the photo cell or if it's like something, or the component where you can manually adjust?
Right. I'm gonna say that probably never have, because I've never taught a class like this to any of them to do. I mean, I generally cover it, like when I do my little training class for using it in the field, I generally cover it. Yeah, so yeah, none of these guys probably knew that, because I've never done a little training for the shop. This is actually, I need to look at this. This took a whole different turn for me that I wasn't thinking about. I was thinking field, people using them, not shop. This is great. I need to think about that.
It must have been, some of them did come back. It was the manual component that you outside the photos. It's working, yay!
And I can't tell you, he's the area sales representative. He's been with K&K for
Thank you.
6 years,
Thank
many years. I've been with him for a little over 2. I'm in North Carolina and Virginia, but as I tell Mike Nesbitt, I also double as the service tech. He's got enough experience now, he could double as a service tech. I know he does a lot of field, addresses field problems, so.
No, this has been good getting with shop people, because, yeah, no, Frank, you probably speak with Frank Avilla. Frank is the head of our technical department. Even though I've been around 7 years, I'll be the first to admit, I concentrated more on the selling than the fixing portion of it. I tried to do that. I mean, I've learned what I call the bare necessities, which is the little stuff I showed you, the battery, the solar charge controller, the photo cell. It gets much deeper involved what we discussed today than Frank is gonna be. Frank is gonna be who to talk to, and especially when it goes to the older boards. You know, like I said, I mean, I know what we got going on now. I vaguely remember,
Yeah.
you know, stuff from 7, 8 years ago when I was coming in. I outside of some of the older ones I've seen here,
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen stuff here before that I had never seen before, because it you know, predated me. So that's when, yeah, I mean, that's when it gets difficult, and I hate it, but it's just like having a 15-year-old car or, you know, whatever. You know, if it wasn't during your time, I mean, you guys are all young. If it wasn't for a time frame that you're in, you're not gonna be familiar with none of that.
The number, your tech support is very knowledgeable.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I had to call them a couple of times when I was out on the road,
Right.
opened up the box, couldn't figure it out. And I'm gonna say that I'm pretty tech savvy with these Fords, only because I've been dealing with.
I was saying, you've been.
About 5 or 6 years now. But, they were very knowledgeable, and he knew exactly what was going on, and he helped me out.
Yeah, for the most part, it's all fairly basic. Like I said, this little bit of stuff I covered, it'll catch probably 75% of what you've going on. You know, once you start getting, you know, LEDs and that going out, I mean, that's kind of a different deal there, I guess.
Basically, do you all at least know how to put up a message?
Okay.
Well, there's a bit. Well, yeah, but for troubleshooting, you don't necessarily need to know how to program an individual message, but you do need to be able to put a message on the board to be able to do any troubleshooting or visual. Are you familiar with the thumb wheel? That's,
Yeah, they all do. That's another thing that's ring consistent. I'm gonna tell you, we're gonna take about 5 minutes just to go over that real quick, which is basically what this sheet is right here. Did you get one back there? You did not. This is actually a giant sticker on the new units now. Then I can stick it inside. Um, and it's actually very simple. There's actually, these boards actually have 199 preset messages in there. They've got all the graphics and stuff to it. I don't even teach how to pull a permanent message, because if you're like me, by the time you find your glasses and figure out what message that you want, or the message that comes close to what you want it to say, I could have did 5 messages by programming it in already.
We don't, yeah, I mean, there's some that's programmed in there, but we haven't messed with that either since we had it for it.
Well, in the big change, and this is actually why I'm so glad that Pam called. You guys, on the thumb wheel now, there's a thumb wheel that has 16 slots on it. Goes from the number 0 to 9, and then the letters A through F, I believe it is. It used to be all 16 of those spots were blank that you could put that many messages on. Within the last 3 or 4 years, they've actually taken the last 8 spots for your error board functions.
And that's what I like.
Okay, that was after the last training class that I did. New ones started doing that, old ones didn't. I can upgrade the firmware in the old ones to do that. And my whole thing is, I don't remember who was in charge last time. It was one of those things, he was gonna check and see if everybody wanted that done, if they didn't. And then that's where I've been trying to get in touch, because I can come down, I just need to plug into that controller and update it, and then you'll have that function on all of them, because you didn't before. It was only on the ones within the last probably 3-4 years.
I think they're so, I won't say obsolete right now. But, I think that we're just trying to kill a couple birds with one stone. You're trying to get the actual individual boards in place,
Right.
so they're right. Everything else on the actual unit is still fine.
I have a feeling we're gonna be able to fix a lot of your problems with solar charge controllers and photo cells. I think we're gonna fix a lot of your not working all night issues, being dim. I think we're about to. Okay, go ahead, and that's great, and that's great too. And that's great too, just don't, which we noticed, yeah. There's 4 different font sizes that you can use. Normally you get 3 lines of 8 letters. When you go to the smallest fonts, you actually get 12. I don't think you guys probably ever change down to much like that.
I didn't remember that from the last time.
Okay.
Because we're always used to, the 3 lines, 8 characters, 2 pages. Technically, we can go 2 pages, some will go 4, but when you put it on the road, you're going 75 miles an hour, you're not gonna read it. Right?
Yeah,
So we don't
yeah,
go past 2.
yeah, you don't get past.
But I thought that the board goes, smaller fonts will go 12 characters.
Yeah,
Of course, certain roads,
I think the,
I don't think the whole,
most DOTs will limit you to a maximum of 3 pages.
yeah.
Now, you get into a
We don't-
private or a commercial application, if you're directing parking, and the speed limit's 15,
Yeah.
or traffic is backed up.
Like follow the FDOT standards, so we don't like to go to 3 pages, and if we do, the 3rd page is usually just our information customer service number for them to call if they want to,
Right.
if they have any questions.
Like I said, and I know you guys pretty much use yours in the road, but I've got a lot of smaller municipalities that they may, yeah, or they'll, New Smyrna Beach is my example, they'll have them set up telling people, all the speech information, where you can park and where you can't do that, which is easy because you're sitting in the damn line for 2.5 hours trying to get to the beach. So you can read it as small and as many pages as you need. Around here going like y'all do, not so much. is that gonna work? But just for y'all, here, you know, when you turn it on, it's gonna come up with your username and password, which is all K&K for the username, hit enter, 1, 2, 3. That's the standard default. We can change it, maybe. It's been the same thing for long enough. You don't want to muddle it up now, but it is possible to change if it ever.
Unfortunately, had customers who turnover in personnel, so-and-so changed the passwords, they're no longer here. We don't know what the passwords are.
Right.
We just stay pretty much consistent. There's a lot of other hands that touch the boards. We really are the ones who are the overseers and the users of the board. But for like these gentlemen in here who want to, you know, we like to see things consistent so that when they have the passwords and sign on, and also as well as, you know, keys, spelling boxes, whatever we need, so we just keep it consistent.
Well, the easiest thing to do, like the young man back there already does, he puts, yellow page back up when they get done to check all the pixels.
Yeah.
Which, you know, once you log in, username, password is gonna bring you up to a main menu. Item number 2, I'm gonna cover one thing only for y'all, I'm gonna make this simple. Item number 2 is create and edit message, which is covered right on that sheet I've got in front of you. So you're gonna hit number 2, and then edit. Next screen gonna pop up, it's gonna ask message type, which is gonna be changeable, we're gonna leave that alone, we're not going any other route. Then it's gonna ask you message number. Where message number comes into play, this thing will actually hold 99 preset messages. Till the watch better goes to hell and then you're gonna be programmed back over it. For as long as that's up, it'll actually hold 99. Only the first 8 now will hold with the thumb wheel, old ones, all 16 spots. So
But they have to be numbered 1 through 8.
they hit that thumb wheel. So that
Number at 22, it's not on the thumb.
you'll have to manually, when you go to bring it up and it asks the message number, you'd actually have to manually type in 22 to bring it up. Like I say, you guys probably change up, but I do a lot of DOT stuff. They have like truck mounted ones, like on the Road Ranger trucks, stuff like that, where they're using the same, you know, accident head, merge left. They'll pre-program those messages to the thumb wheel. Then when they get out there, deploy the board, flip it to the thumb wheel to keep a little laminated card, flip it to the thumb wheel, changes the message. That's where that comes into play. In your instance, if you ever had, say, you were getting ready to set up a D2 or at 9. But during the day, during the day, you wanted to tell people, starting on March 1st, blah, 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 we're gonna detour or whatever. You got that message up for 2 weeks prior to, and then when it actually starts, you wanna put the detour in motion, it changed the message. You can pre-program both of those messages from here. Before you put it out, then anybody can go by and flip it from message 1 to message 2.
But someone still has to manually flip it.
Yeah, you still have to manually flip it, right?
Unless you get the remote control option on the newer something.
I didn't know that was for K&K. I didn't know that everybody could.
It's available now.
Are we talking about being able to sit at our desk? Are we talking about the work zone, the smart work zone ones?
I'm
Well,
talking about sitting at your desk.
or from there.
Or from your phone, anything, internet access.
Yeah, it's just not technically a smart work zone as some other people claim it. I personally am torn on the remote access. It's just like everything else, cell phone included. You're in an area, you don't have good reception. You're not gonna have good connection with that board. It's not gonna be as good as what you covered. Learned hard lesson, so
It's always-
I'm all about it. I'm old school. Learned hard lesson, did a bunch of boards in Panama City 4 years ago. After the storm, cell towers were out. They had a whole truckload of boat anchors over there. They couldn't access nothing because the towers were down. And that is prone to happen here in sunny Florida from time to time. So there's not all the time, but that's when you need it the most, is when something like that happens. You can't use it.
Coming out in Eastville or, Sundance, it's very limited out there.
Right.
So today,
Right, so I'm torn, like I said, I'm hands-on too, I like
yeah.
walk up to it, do it. So anyway, so we're gonna type in. Here now. That's the message that is actually saying.
That was on when we got him.
Yeah, that's what's actually saved location 1 on the wheel right now. Okay. Okay, and that was on 2. Okay, so this is all that the mess, once you figure out what location you want it, a lot of times, people will save that yellow page to like location 99. That way, if you ever do want to check all your panels, you can just go to your message, type in 99, hit the F9 to activate, and it'll bring it up. This one here, I think, was actually saved on,
It's on the button.
yeah. That's actually saved on the wheel already. But anyway, so you're gonna go in, option number 2, create your message. Figure out which location you want to save it to, whatever. You're allowed three lines per page, 8 characters per page.
Let's change the font.
Unless you change the font, which go to the largest font, maybe get your 4, like the message
Can you
said.
use the font on the older boards as well, or is it just the newer boards?
Nope, it can, and the only reason you couldn't do it on the older boards is because up until about 4 years ago was the first that anybody ever figured out that function worked. And that's the God's honest truth. I actually think I was the one that figured it out here.
Ah. Use
Yeah.
that smaller font.
Yep. Hell, I just learned within the last 6 months, you can actually set a schedule on this. You can actually set a message to change on March 1st at 10 p.m. You can actually go and set a schedule in it to change. Hell, I just figured
Maybe
it
it's
out.
4.
Yeah. Old,
Yeah.
old
Is
one.
that this?
No, hell no, that's way more. That'll be me and you morning to figure that out there, because that's a way more involved process than that sheet's gonna cover. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I just figured that out within
Wow, that's amazing.
probably the last year, hell, less than that. Somebody asked me about it, and like, well, I saw when I was going through all the configuration settings on there, I saw where it had set schedule. Does that work? Hell, if I know, let's see. And I'll be damned if it didn't, but it was
Wow, amazing.
it was quite the deal to do it. But anyway, so we're going to K&K enter, 1, 2, 3, enter. We're gonna do number 2. We're gonna create and enter our message. We're gonna tell it what message number we want it to be. In this case, we're gonna go to message number 5. At the end of each line that you type, like say you can go up to 8 characters per line, at the end of each line, you're gonna hit enter and it'll bump you down to the next line. You can either do a stationary message that is just 1 page. Doesn't flash, doesn't do anything. So let's go row, enter, work, enter. Okay. If you were to hit enter again, it would flip you, when you bring that up, it's actually gonna have just does it show it on there very well? That little box, like where it says road work ahead. Prior to that, you would just have just a blank little box that you're looking at. And as you're typing, you're gonna see the words, letters come up in that box.
And if you go past the number of characters that's allowed, type, but it ignores you.
Yeah, it does.
Yep.
And so if you're not watching, I typed in the whole thing, well, and then when you go to activate that message, you get nothing.
Right.
Also, it's important also to make sure that the old message
Is gone, yeah.
gone, or else you're not gonna be putting the new message.
That's the one thing I actually wish we had. I wish we had an option to delete page. We don't do a way you can do it.
It's still backspace.
You have the little back arrow, the backspace, and that's the only way to do it. So you have to back it out basically instead of, I wish we had a page delete function to keep it, but this works all the same. So like I say, if we were just gonna have one work ahead, just a one little page message, when you get done, you're gonna always hit, there's an option of F8 then you can save the message. But that won't activate it. You have to hit F9, which saves it and activates it. If you just hit F8, then you're gonna call me and say, wait, damn, I just did the message, the location 6, it didn't come up. Well, if we turn the thumb wheel, it'll be there. But if you didn't actually hit F9 to activate it, it'll only show up when you, what we do is F9 and then. There we go. Change it.
Oh, and we don't have spell check. And I don't know. I used to use the phrase, we don't have a V chip either, and I get a lot of blank stares.
Road warrior, y'all understand.
That's why I was talking about. If you type,
So you can go in and edit it.
yes. Okay.
Yes, thank goodness.
But if you type it, it'll display. And I've done a lot of trainings where I ask people to come up and actually put in. They like to get creative, like boss man's a jerk, or usually a little more descriptive.
There are old boards. You'll be surprised how people can get into those boards. And, they cut the padlocks off, they open up the leaf, they open up the box, and they can sit there and change whatever they want to change.
Yeah.
Or they just remove the box altogether, which, seal the batteries, take the
get
tires
it.
off.
Do you get a lot of solar panel theft?
I'm gonna tell you, the last 6 years, I don't think I've seen one that messes with the panels, batteries, the actual
Tell-
keyboard, the
Yeah.
tires, the plate, the lights, the
Yeah,
harnesses.
I see you've got an unlocking lug nut on your tires.
Yeah.
We offer that as an option if you want them, but I see you guys have done it.
When you're doing See, to me, we don't really need it. Technically, we should bring it over here. Not that we want to bring back the key. Because this one requires a key, the other one doesn't require a key.
There you-
But we can give you an actual key for the padlock. For the old boards.
I'll give y'all some keys. They're all keys the same.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Okay, because you
Yeah.
only have 2 keys for this.
Yeah,
one.
I got a bag full of my truck. I'll give you some keys while I'm here. Message wise, like I say, if we want just a road work ahead, type road, enter, work, enter, ahead. F9 activate is gonna get you just the single page message, just boom. You want to go to your second page, after you type in ahead, you would hit the enter key again. Your box is gonna go blank one more time. Gonna allow you to start typing
more
again.
lines.
Give you 3 more lines.
And if you've only got 2 lines,
Then it'll
then
center it up.
like this, it'll, on our full matrix models, which apparently is all you've got, it'll automatically size to fit.
And like I said, then once you have 9, it's gonna bring it up, and then another thing you guys might want to write down, which evidently you already know it's on there, that yellow page, that blank out page. There's a little square bracket, you got your regular parentheses, then there's like a square box bracket, I guess is the right word for
I'm not
that.
even real sure what they call
I
it.
think it's a box bracket, it's like a square box bracket. You use the left-hand box bracket, then the letters C, B, the number 9, Charlie Bob 9. Box bracket on the right-hand side, so you put it in between there, and then hit your F9, and that's what gets you your yellow page. There we go. Y'all have any questions at all? I know it's kind of a quick, kind of a simple little walkthrough, but sounds like you've probably got the most day-to-day hands-on with them so far. So, did I give you my,
Been
did I give
tagged
you
in
my?
this shop as the man?
They can if like everything electronics, they don't like water. Humidity's a pain in the ass on them too. Boxes get left open.
Not on my watch, though.
Possible.
11.7 volts is our own cutoff point. So that if it's the board itself, the controller itself would run as low as 5 volts. Obviously, the LEDs, depending on brightness level, number of LEDs, probably, the point here is the reason why we cut them off at 11.7 is so that you don't destroy your batteries and pull them all the way to the point where they won't recharge. So that's a factory default setting. I believe you could set it lower, but especially around here, why? Why would you need to? But 11.7 is, if the battery voltage is read at 11.7, it'll stop displaying messages. Everything else will be working. Once the voltage comes back to 12, things will kick back in and start displaying again. If it's a weak battery or dusk type of situation where the solar contributed to bring the batteries up to 12, then it starts again. Well, in a couple hours, that will deplete again and it'll cut off. Typically, that's the sign that you need to plug in the batteries at the top of them. Not necessarily, but, you know, if it persists, or if you never see it come back up to 12 on its own, or the pretty little LED display doesn't show that those tick boxes coming all the way around, that's when you need to start looking at your solar. And you can measure it right there at that regulator, right there at the screw heads.
So it's combined with this solar panel.
Right. There's a junction box there at the top on the underside of the solar panel, 2 wires, and there is a diode. Solar panels, believe it or not, will back charge without that diode. And by back charge is a misnomer. It'll actually drain power as opposed to contribute power. So I have seen some solar panels where the diodes have gone bad. They're soldered in. They're not, so they're not meant to be taken out. So it's a little bit of a pain in the butt to replace them. I don't know if you're familiar with testing a diode, but anyway, I have seen where some diodes have gone bad. You got a 2 cable wire that comes down, mass comes in, and those 2 wires plug straight into this controller. You've got 2 wires for the battery and 2 wires for the harness that is the display. Sorry. I bet. They put the board back up. I'd have to take a quick look at the wiring, but there is a harness that comes off of. I don't think there are 2 wires that come off of the actual controller, but I think there's a split point. We use a Wago connectors, which are quick and easy, but again, it's something to look for. When when you've got an electrical problem, you start at the battery, you work your way where all of the junction points where the power is supposed to be, to find where you're losing power. I don't.
Yeah.
The word was this the Lexan lens got painted. Obviously somebody figured out to loosen the brackets, compression brackets on the inside and drop the bottom frame out. Who found that out?
So the other ones have the fuse panel inside the box next to the control panel.
The older ones do have fuses. There is a soldered in fuse on the control panel, on the processor board. I'm going to assume that solar regulator has fusing in it. That's an assumption. I've never pulled one apart to look at it. He was talking about the older units having the bayonet automotive type fuses. I believe one of them is for the
Hydraulic.
okay. One of them may be for the trickle charger,
Put them up for the trickle charger.
and the other must be for the main load. So
I believe so.
the trickle chargers they use now, the newer, we've got all these screws to take this panel off to access the batteries and the trickle charger. I'm certain they have the automotive style fuse on. Anything else? Anybody awake?
Oh, yeah.
And as always, if I don't know the answer, I'm gonna find somebody that will, like that. I'm not the answer to, like that, about tapped my wealth of knowledge here today. So anything I know I can be told how to do it, but, you know, we'll always figure it out, just like always. Yeah, when you get to the other end, they're gonna come in. I clean my truck, apologize. I usually carry that stuff. I clean my truck out before we came down, so I don't have one. Yeah, it's gonna come in. You're gonna have a black, white, and a red wire to strip back, and it'll run all of them.
Oh, okay.
It's the same deal, just kind of a different setup. The old ones were actually a photo cell on that little plate that, like I said, just was kind of about mid-board, and it would have two screws going through the front that would hold the photo cell in, and then it would wind through, and then we switched to the one with the little cap, but it's same setup. And it's just plug and play, three wires in, just swap them and put it in.
So let me ask you this. Hypothetically, it's not the photo cell. Talk about the issue, they're severely dim. So they check the photo cell, not the photo cell. They're manually now checking it, and it doesn't go up and down, there's no difference. What happens at that, how to fix it?
It's highly unlikely that it's going to be a problem with all 24 display panels acting the same way, malfunctioning the same way. Highly unlikely that they'll all do the same. So
Yeah, I can honestly say I've never not had a photo cell fix that problem.
But hypothetically, now we're gonna have to look at the controller, the motherboard.
I
take that back, unless there's a short in the harness. It could cause a power drop to the panels.
Now you're,
Now we're getting a little.
yeah, now we're getting involved, but yeah.
all panels.
I've
We have a couple of boards where there's, one or two panels that's super bright, but here, you tell them, then,
repairing.
yeah. And then some of them have never been replaced, but it's just, I mean, every board, okay, all 24 of them, okay, because I know there's 24, and every single one of them are dim. So now, however, in these guys' defense, and I'm not the mechanic for these, so I don't know if it's the photo cell, but our last training session a couple of years ago, we found out about the cell, the photo cell.
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, the last gentleman that was here, his name was Bill, and he got a photo cell and swapped it out, and it wasn't a photo cell, but I don't know if he knew about the manual adjustment.
Yeah, I will say, right.
Can't speak for
Yeah, 'cause there's just a little green terminal block that's in there. and just plug the new wires in right where the old ones are coming from.
Is right when my board's over here, you know, and had this, troubleshoot it. It probably would have already been over here probably for a PM. Maybe one of the things for you guys to play with it, test it, look for the photocell, look for the other adjustment, and just play with it. I mean, right now, I think I have 6 in the yard.
Okay.
This one, when we got this one, I was so protected over this board when I got it. It sat in my yard for a year. And I absolutely refused to use it. Now, it's not because I was afraid to use it, it's because.
It was the good one.
Right. It's a good one.
Right.
Now I have my, some people from engineering, know I have 2 really, really, really good ones. And so I put these 2 good ones, well, one is, I'm sorry, the CS one, not yours, but it's the oldie but goodie.
Right.
Okay, and this one. So I put it out on Lynn Turner Road. The one that put the panel off of it. Here we go. And I was like so upset that it was like brand new board. And it had her. I was so distraught. I was like I think you can.
Okay, it's funny that I'm piecing all together now. You're talking about Napa and all that. They actually did get a quote yesterday for that. That was what I was telling you about. Okay, so yeah, Napa did get a quote from Elena yesterday for,
Oh, you're talking about so.
yeah, for the plexiglass. Now I'm piecing that all together because Napa does stuff like that in a bunch of locations in my territory. So now that I'm seeing this and it's all piecing together, so.
Actually, you've got a Napa supplier right here in your own building.
Right.
They stock for you. And North Carolina and Virginia, it's a company called Mancom.
Okay.
So we get, you're familiar with Mancom for the wall. Yeah, we'll get a quote from Mancom and have no idea where it's going.
Right. Right.
Okay.
You can see it where with red marks.
You guys good?
Yep, go ahead.
Permanent is, it's quite literally, it's permanently programmed into the EEPROM, and the user has no edit capability whatsoever. You can't delete it, you can't modify it, all you can do is display it. The changeable is the use variable, NTCIP calls it variable. It's the user defined where you can create it, you can add, edit, do whatever you want, but permanent are those, 199 messages.
199, whatever.
You can use them in combination of changeable and permanent, but like Wayne said, more times than not, by the time you look up what number corresponds to the permanent message you want,
You change the message.
Yeah,
and all you can do is put it on display, or there's another process where you can add changeable as one page and permanent as another page, but by the time you've gone through those steps, you could have just typed it all in yourself.
right.
So, but does that answer your question?
That's what you have to do. When we get done, come up here and we'll go through, when you go to the login page, you go through, you got like option number 1, 2, where you put the message number on. If you don't go to the first option, it always comes up changeable. If you don't hit number 1, and then it'll come up changeable or permanent. There, you actually have to make a designation ahead of time that you're gonna do a permanent message. Right, right. So you have to actually have to make a designation which permanent message you want. And then even when you go, after you change it to permanent, and then you go to message number down below, if I'm not mistaken, you still probably have to do like P105 or P5 or whatever. I think you still have to use. I haven't done a permanent message, so.
You guys want to see this? You want to go around and see it? What he's doing?
Might as well at least.
Put some hands on?
Familiar with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Fred. Yeah. That's what's so weird, let me see if I've got one of those. The permanent messages that are in there are so weird. 15-minute delay, 30-minute delay, 45-minute delay.
What, so all the messages that you
I don't have.
have in there, like options, props, and problems, changes.
Yes.
So we have it as changing.
They say just type in what you want.
So if you go to display messages, will change. So you don't have to.
Yeah, you gotta go.
One of these guys. I want to make sure. Those are the ones that. They're gonna set up. This is the newer version. And. I'm gonna carry. Express.
Everyone direct the one.
Yeah.
Large. No, but they longer.
that makes, okay.
You've got
Thinking of like a set of friends. Anything you've got in between. Road.
I'm glad that this one's over. One that is like. You're out. Right now, I'm at the fact is I rentalize the movies from my vendor. Because of the movies there.
that message is gonna be, yeah, it's gonna be flashing. I mean, I could, if you wanted to, I could actually just make the letter O out of that whole message flash. If you want to, anything between F5, yeah, anything between the F5 and the F6 is gonna flash. A lot of times, once again, we didn't know for a while that those functions work. If you wanted a one-page message wrote close, if you wanted it to flash, a lot of times, before we learned the F5 and F6, you would have to use your road close, and you'd have to hit enter, and then enter, to give you a second page, and then hit F9, then it was, yeah, so it's flashing the white page, which now worked, but it wasn't a correct record.
Yeah. These guys actually. So, I'm so glad. They've answered. It's easy for my guys. Here you go, this is what it's doing. This is what it- You know what I mean? It is so hard when these are fast. Not this particular, but.
We're gonna be the message one. What we.
And then